The diesel exhaust aftertreatment system consists of a diesel oxidation catalyst for NOx control and the diesel particulate filter, or DPF, for particulate control. One of the main purposes of the DPF is to collect particulates from the engine exhaust in order to minimise discharge of soot to the atmosphere. The soot particles accumulate in the channels of the DPF and are burned off at regular intervals through a process called regeneration. This prevents the DPF from clogging. The ECM commands the DPF regeneration after calculating various vehicle conditions such as DPF pressure difference, exhaust gas temperature, engine oil quality, engine speed, and so on. Excessive accumulation of soot in the DPF can cause a drop in engine performance. During regeneration, additional fuel is injected via multiple post-injections in order to increase the exhaust gas temperature. During this period, the DPF temperature is raised to approximately 600 degrees Celsius or 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the accumulated soot is oxidised or burned off as CO2. A DPF pressure sensor signal voltage low fault code in a pull-down monitored circuit may be caused by a short to ground or open in the high reference or signal circuit. With the ignition on and the pressure sensor disconnected, check for between 4.8 and 5.2 volts with the meter connected between the harness connector high reference terminal and battery negative. If the meter displays 0 volts, move 1 meter lead to battery positive and monitor the display. Any voltage reading here indicates a short to ground in the circuit. Turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM. Turn the ignition on and monitor the meter. If the voltage disappeared, then the short is in the ECM or a circuit from the ECM. To isolate the fault, perform a continuity test between the pressure sensor high reference terminal and every other terminal in the ECM connector. If this is okay, then the short to ground must be in the ECM. If after disconnecting the ECM connector the voltage did not disappear, then the short is in the harness between the two connectors. With the ignition on and the pressure sensor disconnected, check for between 4.8 and 5.2 volts with the meter connected between the harness connector high reference terminal and battery negative. If the meter displays 0 volts, move 1 meter lead to battery positive and monitor the display. If the meter still displays 0 volts, then there is an open in the high reference circuit. Move the meter lead back to battery negative and with the other lead, back probe the ECM connector high reference terminal. If the meter now displays the correct voltage, then the open is between the sensor and the ECM connectors. If there is still no voltage, then turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM connector. Check for terminal tension and corrosion on the DPF signal terminal in the ECM connector. If this is okay, then the open will be in the ECM. A logged signal voltage low DTC may be caused by a short to ground on this circuit. To check for a short to ground, back probe the signal terminal with one lead and connect the other to battery negative. If the meter displays 0 volts, then there may be a short to ground on the circuit. To prove this, turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM connector. Move the meter lead to battery positive and monitor the display. A reading of battery voltage will confirm a short to ground. If the meter displays 0 volts, then the short is in the ECM or a circuit from the ECM. To isolate between the two, perform a continuity test between the signal terminal and all other terminals in the ECM connector. If this test proved okay, then the short is in the ECM. With the ignition on and the meter connected between battery positive and the signal terminal, you should see battery voltage. 0 volts may indicate an open. To confirm this, move the lead to battery negative and read the display. If the meter still displays 0, then there is an open in the circuit. This rules out a short to voltage. Move the meter lead back to battery positive and with the other, back probe the ECM connector signal terminal. If the meter now displays battery voltage, then the open is between the sensor and ECM connectors. If there is still no voltage, then turn the ignition off and disconnect the ECM connector. Check for terminal tension and corrosion on the DPF signal terminal in the ECM connector. If this is okay, then the open will be in the ECM. If the low reference, high reference and signal circuits test okay, then the fault can only be in the DPF pressure sensor. As technicians, we try to perform tests and checks in an order that is efficient and accurate. Consistent training is the key to effective diagnosis. Thanks for watching.